The superstar guest train just keeps rolling along. And I had a great time a little bit earlier in the day, but I feel like this is about to be another great time as we have another tremendous guest waiting in the wings. Of course, it's your boy Willie Epting Jr. And this is the Ballers Podcast. And we have an impactful show coming up because this young lady who's backstage is a tremendous journalist. She's the host of several shows that I'm going to actually let her tell you guys about because I don't want to mix it up. And not only that, she is now my new sissy because you guys know how we do it with the Shakeback Media Group. First time you're a guest, anytime after that, you become family instantaneously. We're going to bring her here and bring her in just a second. We're going to talk some pro wrestling. I'm very, very intrigued by what she's going to talk about there. And we may get into a little basketball. I know she's a Laker fan, and we may get into some NBA and some NFL because her Eagles did win the Super Bowl, and I know she's pretty happy about that. So it is time for us to go ahead and get the ball rolling. We're going to do that right now. Come on, let's go.
Right about now, you're about to be possessed by the sounds.
Yeah, I know what it is. You little suckers get to talking, grabbing, not walking, strapped to the pong, and they jaws and smacking, they sleep with the coffins, and they getting greedy like saying.
Yes. There she is in all her splendor. It is Megan the Impact Ambers, and I know we're going to talk about wrestling, but she actually has a wrestler's name. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Just happy to be here again. Thank you for inviting me on your platform. Always interested in talking about wrestling with fellow wrestling fans and other media folks. This should be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think so too. As a matter of fact, I believe it 100% in my heart, and I feel it in my bones that this is going to be a good show. And even though I may not be the wrestling fan that I once was, I do want to ask you about. We're going to get into about the old school stuff because that's what I remember the most here in just a second. But I do want us to start off with a little fun, a little get to know Megan a little bit. As the lineup said, I want you to tell us or tell the audience. And oh, by the way, thank you guys for out there for checking us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram TV. I see you guys out there watching. And of course, Twitter. And that is where Megan and I, quote unquote, met on Twitter. And as a matter of fact, that's why I'm having to meet all these great and wonderful personalities that become part of the SBMG family is through social media. But Megan, something that little to nobody knows about the Impact. I'm waiting with bated breath.
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is that I went to an open house, a House of Glory, earlier this year, and got a chance to see what it was like to not, to be in the ring instead of watching those in the ring. And it's not easy. It's not easy. So I have a whole new respect for wrestlers. It's a job. It is a job. And I might try it again, but nothing on a professional level, just to say I've done it.
Right. Now, for people out there that don't know, kind of talk about what the House of Glory is.
House of Glory is a independent wrestling promotion here in New York that is actually owned by Master P.
Really?
And yeah, and every month or so they have several matches, but they usually have some big names there. This past March, they had Mercedes Monet, formerly known as Sasha Banks, and a couple other people, the Hardys, the Hardy Boys, um, Joe Hendry, Ricky Saints, formerly known as Ricky Starks, um, a couple of people. So it's a they have I feel like they have a lot of future major promotion wrestlers there. So
Mhm.
if you want to watch them before they get big, I would say House of Glory is definitely one of those promotions to keep an eye out on.
And where are they located?
In Queens.
In Queens, and it's owned by Master P. That's crazy. Master P.
Yes.
Master P got his hands in everything. I didn't know he was a part of the sports entertainment industry at all.
Yeah, no, that's a little known fact, but yes, he does have ownership of House of Glory.
Yeah. Okay. Queens. I the only part I've been to Queens is LaGuardia. That's it.
Okay, well, this is not too far from the JFK airport,
Okay.
so it's like in the opposite direction of Queens, but it's in that area. Yeah,
So JFK is considered Queens?
I consider it Queens.
Oh, okay. Well, if you consider it Queens, that's all that matters to us.
Yes, I mean, because Queens is really big. Queens
Hmm.
itself is almost like its own town.
Hmm.
It's easy to get lost in. I don't like traveling out there. You
Hmm.
know, you can always catch me in Manhattan. You can catch me in the Bronx where I was born and raised. Um, but Queens, yeah, next to Staten Island, you will get lost out there if you have a bad track of direction. If
Hmm.
you can't, you know, keep track of direction, you will get lost out there.
The last time we were in New York was, I want to say, was the pandemic still in? Let me see. 19, we were in. 18, we went to Maui. 19, we went to San Diego. It may have been 21 that we went to New York, and
Okay.
we stayed off of 50 West 57th, right there in Hell's Kitchen. Eh,
Okay.
Yeah, and that place, I mean, TV does it no justice whatsoever. And I tell folks, man, if you ever get a chance to go to New York, you're gonna need to go for at least 5 days, because otherwise, and it may be even longer than that, because you're not gonna get a chance to see everything in like
Right.
2 days.
It's true. It's
Yeah,
absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Just not enough hours in a day to
yeah.
see all the major landmarks that you want to see, and then just to, just to travel throughout New York in itself. Um, no, a couple of days is not going to be enough. I mean, there's still places here, being here my whole life, that I still haven't experienced, like, for instance, I've seen the Statue of Liberty, but I've never been to the Statue of Liberty. And people get shocked because they're like, "You're from New York," and it's like, "Yeah, I mean, she there. She
Hmm.
not going nowhere." So it's like you don't feel that same urgency
Right,
to see certain things.
right. I totally get that. And being in Dallas, the Dallas Fort Worth area myself, I can
Okay.
have a similar story to that, because DFW is so big when it comes to land area, and it's not nearly as big as New York in terms of population, but land area,
Right.
it's so spread out. And like you said, there are parts, there's places, there's restaurants that I still have not frequented, and I've been here for dang near 30 years. So I feel exactly what you're saying when you talk about that. But one of these days, I think we'll get back to New York, because we didn't get to go to Brooklyn. We didn't get to go to Queens. We didn't get to go to the Bronx, Harlem, none of that. So that's going to be a
Whoa.
little bit more sense of an urgency when we come back.
Okay.
And I do
You will
love,
experience some stuff in the Bronx. That's for sure. You
yeah.
gonna
Well,
experience.
I gotta go. I gotta go. I mean, there's this bucket list of things that's in there that's got to come out before I check them out of here. So that's just what
Right.
it is. And I do love, man, the pastrami sandwiches are so good. Oh my gosh,
Where you get it from?
I don't remember,
Because
but
I know a lot of people love to go to Cats because of the scene from when Harry met Sally. You know, they're a little high price for me,
uh-huh.
but I've heard nothing but good things from them. So, I guess it's worth the price overall.
Yeah, I feel that because there are places like, I mean, just like any major city in the United States, there's going to be places like that you're not really, there's no real urgency to go, like you said about the Statue of Liberty, but
Uh,
you figure that you have enough time to get there, and then next thing you know, either something like the pandemic will happen and all these places are shut down and to never come back or whatever the case may be. But I love the pastrami sandwiches there. I don't remember. It may have been one of those street vendors. I'm not sure. And then the Brooklyn style pizza. Oh my gosh. It is delicious. And Domino's actually has a replica of the Brooklyn
yeah.
style pizza. It's actually pretty good too. And whenever I order from Domino's, that's what I always get. Same thing.
I get that.
Yeah. All right. I'm always interested, Megan, about fellow people that are in this business. And some of us, we get here different ways. I mean, I actually got a master's, or not a master's degree. I have a bachelor's degree in mass comm. And
Okay.
I've never worked in the media until I got my own company. So I'm interested in your journey and how you got to where you are. And is there any particular journalist or person out there that's in the media that pattern your style after?
uh, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
No. But actually I have a degree in digital media.
And what?
So digital media.
Digital media. Okay.
Yeah. So I just wanted to learn how to do Photoshop and how to edit music videos and stuff. That's what I was going to school for.
Uh-huh.
That was where 23-year-old Megan wanted to be. But some things had changed since then, and I've always been told that I was a fairly good writer.
Mm-hmm.
So when I my first professional position was with Hollywood Unlocked back in 2016. So it was very early in the beginnings of Hollywood Unlocked. So it wasn't the big conglomeration that it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Jason was heavy Jason. He wasn't thin like he is now, and he was still on Love and Hip Hop. So there was a lot of things that was going on with him based on that show. So there was like it was still like a baby company. And
Mm-hmm.
from there, just I think just starting off at that particular job kind of opened up other doors for me, like being able to work at the stores, being able to work with Vashti Kola, which is the first woman who designed Jordan sneakers.
Mm.
From there, freelancing and ultimately becoming the social media manager for 1AM Radio, which is ran by Yes Jules,
Mm-hmm.
and then Jasmine brand. And working for another Vashti on her company, and she was at the time the social media manager for No Jumper.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of just went from there. And then in late part of 2021, that's when I started working for Blavity. So
Okay.
that was I would say that was one of the bigger positions that I've had at Blavity, and started noticing how like the titles started to change a lot. And then from there, I worked at Revolt TV, and I was a writer for there too. But in all them years from 2016 up until 2022, I just worked nonstop. So by that part of 2022, working through the pandemic and stuff, I ended up suffering from burnout, and pretty much just took a whole, it was a little longer than a year off from writing. I just really wanted nothing to do with writing. I just wanted to just steer as far away from it as possible. And it wasn't until last year that I was introduced to the founder of Wrestling Republic, Ben Allison, and they was looking for writers. And I said, well, I'm starting to feel that itch again. But excuse me. Ironically, I only wrote one article for Wrestling Republic before they started a new podcast called Sunday Night Spotlight. And I was asked to be a part of that panel. And for almost a year, May will be a year, I've just been podcasting since then. So just starting as an intern for Hollywood Unlocked to, being a podcast host of 3 different shows, and just everything in between. Everything between that, covering shows, interviewing people that I grew up watching, like Ty Dolla $ign, like Ludacris, new faces, her name skips me right now, so I'm kind of embarrassed. I can see her face, but I can't think of her name right now. But just a lot of the younger crowd that is becoming the idols for generations that is coming up, and just being in that position. So going from interviewing people that I grew up watching to interviewing people that I'm kind of like physically like an auntie to, it puts everything in perspective, and just everything else in between that, in them years, try to get my hands in everything. I was volunteering for Afro Punk. I was being a person. I've been a personal assistant. I have been a production assistant. I have, excuse my son in the background.
Okay.
But I've always wanted to try everything. And if I didn't like it, I didn't stick around. But I always wanted to be there long enough to say that I have experience in that. So yeah, for almost 10 years, I've just done a little bit of everything. And even during those times, I even worked at Whole Foods. I was not only did I work in customer service, but I also worked in the seafood department. So I anybody who had shopped at Whole Foods in Midtown between 2019 and 2021, they probably saw me there filleting fish, So I've lived a lot of lives. That's the best way I can put it. Lived a lot of lives.
It sounds like it, and that experience factor does nothing but it increases your marketability, of course. It makes you more sought after, of course. And those are all good things, except for when except for when we try to take on a little bit too much, like like most of us have done. Everybody. I shouldn't say everybody because you have to be careful when we use the word every and never and ever and all that stuff. But most
Right.
people that are in this particular business, um, it is a tough business to crack, and
Yeah.
you have to really know somebody, or you have to do like I did and just create your own way.
Sure.
And it ain't easy. It's a lot of work, and a lot of people don't understand that. So kudos and shout out to you for that. Now I need everybody out there to drop your comments in down below for Megan. Whatever questions you have or whatever comments you have, of course, we will shout you out on the show. And again, we want to thank Megan for joining us here on the Ballers Podcast, courtesy of or powered by the Shakeback Media Group. And we're going to continue on in the episode because you have worked with a lot of people that you just mentioned: sports entertainment, regular entertainment. What would you say was the most challenge, or what challenges did you face in each area? And if you and what did you do to overcome those challenges?
You know,
I promise. I promise I didn't mean for this to be an oral exam.
no. Every once in a while, depending on how I'm feeling that day,
Mm-hmm.
um, it depends. The answer changes. Um, I would say probably the most challenging, or maybe the second most challenging, and then I'll tell you the most challenging. The second most challenging is working with children. And I don't mean literal children, I mean adults who are
Mm-hmm.
children.
Mm-hmm.
People who can't keep their personal feelings outside of the job.
Mm-hmm.
People who um, feel like you're doing your job too well, or you're doing
Mm-hmm.
your job uh, too sufficient, because now you're a problem. You are an issue for them. It shows their insecurity, especially if you're coming into a job blindly. You get hired to do a job, you do it well, and now it's a problem,
Mm-hmm.
because you do it too well. That was definitely the second most challenging. I would say the first most challenging was definitely not taking breaks between jobs. And um, when it came down to writing for Blavity and writing for Remote TV, um, I got introduced in covering more social justice issues.
Mm-hmm.
So the news that I would hear on TV, especially during the times when, you know, um, the Black Lives Matter movement was at its highest rate, um, you had to cover those stories.
Yeah.
You had to cover those stories, and you had to read a lot about it. And I think it's hard. I don't know if people necessarily understand how much of your brain and just your overall body soaks up that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you read it, and you have to break it down in the simplest of terms to where it can be understood. And then you push the article out, and you think that that's it. You think, okay, now move on to the next story, and it's not. It stays with you. It sticks with you. And the most challenging story that I had to cover at the time was the I mean, I just call for what it is, the massacre in Texas with the children.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to follow that story. And, just seeing the videos, reading the articles, seeing the pictures of the custom made caskets that was made for the children, it's hard,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you have to look to your left or you look to your right and your child is sitting right there with you, and at that moment you're not a journalist. At that moment you're not a writer. You're a mother. You're a mother who can feel and not so much relate, but can sympathize with those mothers who have now lost their children. And I didn't necessarily take the break that I needed. I
Mm-hmm.
just said, okay, I feel like this is not necessarily the job for me. Let me go to Revolt. And Revolt, it started off well, but anybody who reads Revolt, they definitely, I don't want to say thrive in social justice, but that is their main mark. That is most of the bigger stories that they cover. And it's like dodging one punch just to get hit with the other.
Yeah.
It just, and what really did it for me, like what really kind of just, I would say, broke me in a sense, was definitely having to cover the passing of Takeoff.
Mm-hmm.
We had just lost PNB Rock in September and turned around, and we had ended up losing Takeoff a little, I would say a little less than 2 months later, just
Mm-hmm.
about a month and some later. And we had assignments to cover, and the assignments were where Revolt TV. The stories has to come out. We have to be the first.
Yeah.
So you're going to go out there and find any stories that you can find
Mm-hmm.
on what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Put it out first because we have to be the first to do it. And all of our stories had to be on his passing. So it's just, you know, at some point, it's like, this is too much death.
Yeah.
It's too much, and that's when I just said, yeah, I'm done. And when I finally got that feeling to write again, it was about wrestling, which is
Mm-hmm.
fun and is opinionated. And you talk about men and their skippies, and you talk about the women wrestlers, and it's lighthearted. You could analyze the stories, and stuff, and it's not heavy, you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to avoid, the
Yeah.
heaviness
Yeah.
of real life.
And that's interesting that you say that because when you say the Texas children's massacre at the school, I'm thinking you're talking about the Uvalde school shooting.
Mhm.
And being here in Texas, and that had been one of the, or if not the most horrific events of any school shootings in this state, and how our local media covered it. I mean, with the national media, with CNN and Fox and everybody else going out there, Uvalde is probably about a good 7 hours from where I live, but you can still
Okay.
feel it. And it was a catastrophe in itself just because of the amount of life that was lost. But then the way that it was handled from the so-called authorities just
Yeah.
made you want to just like put some cyanide in somebody's coffee. I mean, I was that mad about it when it
It
all started
was.
coming out.
It was. I mean, if it didn't make you hug your children harder, it made you want to just take them out of school and just homeschool them. But, my son, he'll be 14 in August, and I've been homeschooling him since the first grade. So it wasn't much of a worry for me when it comes down to him. But I do have a nephew who goes to school in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And, know, and luckily enough, I come from a tight knit family, so we all keep in touch with each other. And I do have a brother that lives in Texas too. He lives in, please forgive me, I'm butchering this name wrong. Roy City.
Roy City, that's for
Is that what you say?
crazy. Roy
Yeah,
City, yeah, Roy City is like 2 blocks over from me.
yeah. That's where my brother lives. So I have one brother in Texas, and then I have two brothers in Phoenix, and the rest of us is still in New York, even though we're trying to get out of here. We're trying to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I worry about my nephew going to
Yeah,
school out there and stuff. And I thought that was absolutely despicable how it was handled as well. But it's like, it's a job and you're assigned to write about it. And, couldn't really use being the mother as an what would be considered as an excuse, because my managing editor and the editor at the time of the site are mothers too. But it's
mm-hmm.
like some people are just more sensitive than others, and I, it probably didn't bother them to that extent because they didn't have to cover it.
Right.
They just gave the assignments, and we had to cover it. So when it came down to the little department that I was working at the time, I was the only mother. So it affected me far different than anyone else, even though I can't really speak for them, but it affected me to the point where I just said, it's time for me to go.
Yeah, and that is completely understandable. And shout out to you again, because I can only imagine how. I mean, I can't even imagine being a mother, but then having to cover that story and relating to those moms is a completely different story. All right, let's get it a little bit more light, if you will.
Yes.
I want to talk about your involvement in pro wrestling, or the sports entertainment industry. And back when I was really like watching it every Monday and every Thursday and every Saturday, you had the NWO and the WCW. You had the Attitude Era in WWF. I'm going to always call it the WWF. I'm not going to call it the WWE. I don't work for them. I don't own it, so they can't come after me. WWF, and then, of course, the current era. So what would you say out of the three eras would have been, or would or is or were or was the most, I guess, iconic and entertaining, but the most dangerous at the same time?
Definitely the Attitude Era. Definitely the Attitude Era. I mean, when I really started watching wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
um, 'cause my mom watched it as a kid, but she stopped. So when we started watching it with our mother again, I had to be about 12, 13. So
Mm-hmm.
we're uh this is about 99,
Uh-huh.
2000. So I'm telling my age here.
That's okay.
Um, but
If you know about the
yeah,
NWO, you're
that
already telling your age.
yeah, Um, but yeah, definitely the Attitude Era. There was just something. eh, I don't know how to explain it. It's like we saw different things in the movies and stuff that we ended up seeing in wrestling. But I guess the difference was, it's scripted, but it's not in the format of a movie, like you
Mm-hmm.
have fighting. So you had the adult side to it. You might catch a camera real quick of a woman flashing in the crowd, or you might see like China mooning people, or even a male wrestler doing it, or you had like bra and panty matches. You had
Yeah.
real
Yes,
like
indeed.
brutal. I mean, nowadays you don't really have the brutality in the matches, in my opinion,
Uh-huh.
in WWE as you did then. You see it in other promotions.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would see it in GCW, which
Mm-hmm.
is another smaller independent. Well, it's independent, but it's like one of the bigger independent promotions. Um, or even AEW.
Mm-hmm.
You will see the brutality that we used to see in the matches then, like with Mick Foley, or
Yeah,
like
oh yeah.
with uh I know it's like people don't like saying his name out loud. It's like Boogeyman, but like Chris Benoit, like you saw things then that you don't necessarily see now, which is probably for the best,
Mm-hmm.
because although Vince knew children was watching it, he was still entertaining the adults. It wasn't like he was trying to parent your children. He's like, look, whatever I want on this show is going to be shown. It's up to you if you want your kids to see it.
Right.
You might see uh Triple H pretending to be Kane, jumping into a casket of his fake dead girlfriend, or you might see Stone Cold dropping Triple H from a forklift in a car upside down. You might see Vince blown up in a car, and all these times these things happen. Come to school the next day, because at the time pay-per-views was on a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Come to school the next day, and you couldn't help but to talk about it in school. So you're getting in
Yeah.
trouble in school because you're talking about it, but it felt so real.
Yeah.
You thought like these wrestlers were really out of here. You thought we saw them really get taken out, and then they'll pop up like 2 weeks later. You
Mm-hmm.
know, just alive and well. So definitely the Attitude Era.
And we know that a lot of, well, everything is scripted, but I used to get into it with people, man, when I was younger. I mean, they would take a bat to your head if you told them that wrestling was not real. I mean, like for
Yeah.
real, they would. It's almost like they had a stake in whoever their favorite guy or their favorite lady wrestler was, and you were really, they would treat you like you owed them money, like for real. So I,
It's
I think the Attitude Era was so much fun. The NWO era, when Hulk Hogan invaded, or I'm sorry, it was Nash and Scott Hall, and rest in peace Scott Hall. When they invaded they were the outsiders, and they were really competing against the WWF at that time. The whole Monday
yeah.
Night Nitro, it was awesome, because I was actually, me and my brother used to watch it on every Monday, and we would switch from channel to channel, trying to decide or
Mhm.
trying to stay with the moment. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed that time, and Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and those rivalries. And as a matter of fact, let's just go there right now, because I want to ask you about some of those old school rivalries that were there. You had Kane and the Undertaker. You had Triple H against almost everybody, Stone Cold against almost everybody, Christian and Edge against the Hardy Boys and Lita and all that. I mean, can you describe what your most favorite rival was, whether it was tag team or whether it was a singles match?
I don't know if I had a favorite rivalry, but I definitely had a favorite. I mean, any rivalry he was in, I was like always rooting for him. I was always on his side. So and that was pretty much Triple H. He was like the one bad guy that you rooted for. You know, like you wanted him to be successful in any rivalry that he was in. But if I had to choose one of his, I would probably say, and I think it's probably one of the underrated rivalries, and I would say him and Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
Him and Kurt Angle, because it was like at that time, Kurt came in, you know, he reminded us every week that he won his gold medals with a broken freaking neck. And he was an Olympic gold medalist. And so we was rooting for him. But then this Olympic gold medalist kind of had a little thing for the boss's daughter. And Triple H could see it, like, you trying to move in on my woman. I don't like it. And I think I literally like jumped out of my skin after, I think it was a tag match that they was in. Or yeah, I think it was her, The Rock. It was The Rock, Trish, Triple H, and Stephanie. They was in a tag match. Stephanie got hurt. Kurt came, carried her off, and you know Triple H proceeded to get jumped in the ring, and that was the moment when Kurt had kissed Stephanie, and it was like, oh, Triple H is going to kill you.
So was that a real thing? The feelings that he had for Stephanie McMahon, was that a real thing or was that scripted?
I believe it was scripted because he was married. He was at the time married to Karen Angle, who is now known as Karen Jarrett, because she is married to Jeff Jarrett now.
Jeff Jarrett. Oh, he was one of my favorites with that guitar.
JEFF JARRETT. Yes, Jeff Jarrett. But you know, I mean, no, it's an interesting thing to think about, because the difference between then and now is that if anything was happening backstage, you had to be there. You had to work there. You had to be a part of that company. It wasn't leaked online. It wasn't on these websites. You know, it wasn't millions of YouTube videos talking about it. You had to be in it. Whatever happened behind those black curtains stayed within those black curtains. So I don't necessarily think it was real. It just looked real.
It sure did. I mean, I remember that that whole Kurt Angle Triple H rivalry, and I think like you said, I think it was one of the more underrated rivalries. I mean, we know about Triple H and when he was with when it was DX and all of that. I mean, that I'm getting chills just by talking about this with you, because it was embedded in our weekly routine in terms of what we were going to watch on TV every single Monday and every single Thursday.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
that's
then
awesome.
Years later, and now to me, I felt like that was like one of the big scandals. Of course, one of the next biggest scandal, which turned out to be real life playing in front of us, was definitely the Matt, Edge, and Lita saga, you know, because Lita really was cheating with Edge. And it spilled over, you know, so it was a real life situation. And of course, Vince, being the evil genius that he is, said, okay, well, your girlfriend, who's also a wrestler, is cheating with another wrestler. We're going to present this to the audience. We're going to make a story out of it. So, between me and you, I think a lot of those fights were real. I think a
Yeah.
lot of them punches was definitely landing because Matt was hurt. Matt
Yeah.
almost lost his job over that because he really wanted to take Edge out. Like, he was
Mhm.
devastated.
I thought you was gonna say he really wanted to take the edge off.
But probably that too. But he definitely wanted to take Edge out along with it, because
Right.
it's like, we work together. This is my girlfriend, and somehow you two become really cozy with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I,
yeah, so that was one of the few real life stories that was ended up being a part of our entertainment.
yeah. And I think for us as fans that didn't really have a peek behind the curtain like you did, I mean, it just made it that. I mean, we used to come to work every Tuesday morning, me and three other guys, and we would be like, "Yo, we got some matters to discuss," and we would be talking about what happened on Monday Night Raw the night before. It was crazy.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't either. Like, when this was happening, I was still very much in high school, but it's it, it was one of the stories that ended up, I guess, coming out years later,
mm-hmm,
So we're watching it, but it wasn't until a lot of this stuff came out years later that, a lot of those
yeah,
things were real.
yeah, and for Vince, I think Vince. I mean, I think that was kind of up to no good because he put the fortune over people's real lives by exploiting them like that. And everything that has happened with Vince since then, some people will say, well, it's karma. All right, a couple more questions before we bounce. Give me your top 5 wrestlers of all time.
Mm. Um. Okay, I can't put them in order. Can't put
That's
them in
fine.
order.
That's fine.
But I will say, of all time, well, definitely, I would say Triple H,
Mm-hmm.
Roman,
Roman Reigns. Okay.
um, hmm,
Come on, Megan. It ain't that
Stone
difficult.
Cold.
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking, um, definitely, definitely Bianca Belair.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely Bianca Belair, and I would have to go with. Hmm. Only because I grew up watching her.
Uh-huh.
Lita. I would say Lita.
Lita. Okay, so
Yeah.
that actually leads me to this because I'm a little surprised that you did not say him. So here he is right here.
Undoubtedly, unquestionably, 100% completely suck.
I'm surprised.
I couldn't stand The Rock half of the time. He used to get on my nerve. The Rock used to get on my nerve. Now, he was entertaining. I still
Yeah.
love him. Love the final boss character that he's portraying now.
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of respect for The Rock and what he has done. And I can appreciate him making sure that his family stays within the company, maybe,
He has a
if you
niece.
have it,
He has the niece that's
huh?
wrestling. He has a niece that's wrestling in the WWE, right?
No.
He he doesn't. I thought he did. I know him and Roman are related. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. Oh God. It's quite a few of them. So you have Roman and you have um Rakishi's three boys.
I
Jimmy,
did it for The
Jay,
Rock.
and Solo. Yes. So you got Rakishi's three boys that's wrestling. Roman is the son of Sika
Mm-hmm.
from
Samoans.
yes. Then you have Tangaloa
Mm-hmm.
and Tamatanga, who
Mm-hmm.
are the sons of Haku.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Jacob Fatu, who is the son of what is his name? He's Rakishi's nephew. I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember Rakishi's brother's name, but that's his son.
Mm-hmm.
And then The Rock's daughter, she runs the NXT portion of the show. And then you have Nia Jax, who is another relative.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's crazy.
you have another cousin that's coming up in NXT. He haven't debuted it yet. Then of course you got Umaga's son, who will probably pop up in WWE soon. Yeah,
Yeah.
they gonna keep some jobs in that company for sure. You know, if you related to them, you probably right with your birth certificate, you get a WWE contract. Right with your
Mm-hmm.
birth certificate.
Mm-hmm. One final question for you before I give you the floor to shamelessly plug yourself. I call it the shameless plug portion of the show, but we'll do that in just a second. So, if you were a professional wrestler, what character would you identify with? And would you be a quote good or bad wrestler?
I would probably pick someone that already exists.
However you want to do it.
Okay. I would say I more than likely relate to Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
Trinity Fatu, also known as Naomi, the current character that she's playing right now, which is a heel. She is a bad guy. Um, Mainly because I relate. I relate to why she's feeling the way she feels. She feel like her friend chose somebody else over her, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And
Mm-hmm.
I think we all have been in a situation where um it's like you lose a friend even though you don't lose them physically. It's kind of like they find new friends, so they start spending time with that new friend, and it's like, what am I, child live over here? Like we were best friends, and now this new friend comes and so I really relate to that in that aspect. So yeah, it seemed
Yeah.
like the bad guys have fun anyway, so
Mm-hmm.
I'll
I
be a
mean,
bad guy.
I think they
Go
love
ahead.
getting booed. I think they love getting booed. It's just it's very entertaining. So, all right,
I can see
shameless plug portion of the show. Give out your social media handles if you feel comfortable. Give out your all the stuff that you're involved in. Go.
okay. You can find me on Twitter at I am Megan Ambers. You can find me on Instagram at Megan Ambers. I am the host of If I May Speak Candidly, which is also a column. So you can find the column and the podcast. Podcast is on YouTube. I am the co-host of Transatlantic Takedown, which is a international podcast. My co-host Derek Cook is from Ireland.
Oh
So you
wow.
get the best of both worlds from us. That's every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Twitter and YouTube and Twitch. Um, and I am also a daily panelist on Wrestling Republic's The Daily Show. You can catch me every Saturday. Most of the time, I'm on the Saturday show talking about SmackDown. Also, Sunday Night Spotlight, which is every Sunday, where it's a little bit more free. Our terminologies, the way we talk, the way we express that stuff is a little bit more free. And of course, this Sunday we have a tournament happening where we will be testing each other's knowledge on old wrestling. And I don't think I'm gonna win because we're going all the way back to the days of Hulk Hogan before I was born. So I know I'm going to lose that tournament, but it should
No. I can be your lifeline. Hit me up. I'll be your lifeline. Hit me up.
Okay. Yes, because I'm going up against my friend Drizzy. We have tournaments every week. So it's two co-hosts from the show going up against each other. So I'm going up against my co-host Drizzy, which I'm sure he'll take it easy on me, but if I can get a little help so I can beat him, that'll be great.
I got you, sis.
That'll be so much fun.
I got you, sis.
Yes.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, I got to give you one of these.
Thank you.
And also, before we get out of here, we got to pay the bills. The sponsor will get upset if we do not do that. So here we go.
Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure of your next step in life? It's time to take charge with Don't Jump Life Coaching Solutions. I'm Patrice Epting, and alongside Willie, we're certified life coaches here to guide you through life's toughest challenges.
Whether it's mental health, relationships, or shifts in mindset, we'll help you discover your purpose and move forward with confidence.
Life doesn't have to hold you back. Take the leap with Don't Jump Life Coaching Solutions.
Schedule your free consultation today by calling 469-358-5241.
I love that. That is us. That is our life coaching practice. And anybody out there that desires a coach, needs a coach. A lot of people don't know that they need a coach, but we have a free discovery call. You can hit us up at don'tjump.net for your free discovery call. Book it there. Megan, thank you so very much for doing this with me. You are welcome on the show anytime you want to come on. I'm going to make sure that we keep in touch through Twitter, and good luck with everything that's going forward with yourself and all the things you have with your endeavors. All right, so it is time to go. So I like to say this because when I play this, I always say I don't know who this person is, but I can tell you that they're spitting. Here he is. I don't know if he's in New York. I don't know where he's from. But that's who he is. All right, Megan and Willie. Let's take care of each other. Y'all hug each other. Y'all love each other. I promise it's going to be all right. And we will always come again. We out.
There's no people for several miles. Desert towns around ground zero. Reach down, holding